everyone, and welcome back. My name is Rayanna Schnarr, and today we'll be working through our harmony series. So we'll start with harmony in life. This will be by assessing our shortcomings and some limitations that we might have become aware of through our self-awareness or our awareness section in general. We'll reflect back on our niyama. Surrendering brings harmony. Remembering that surrendering invites us to pay attention to what life is asking of us, to accept the reality we've been handed, while also being active participants in life. So what does harmony in life mean? Let's look at our relationships, our career, our health, our spirituality, finances, and everything else. It's hard to achieve and seemingly impossible to maintain. So how do we find balance in life? Well, thankfully, we already did an assessment of our life and where we might have or not have balance. So we're going to reflect back on our wheel of life. So if we remember, it's our circle, and we were able to chart in different areas where we felt we were on a scale of 1 to 10. So looking at our chart, we're probably confronted with the challenge of accepting and acknowledging all the parts of our life, including all of our maybe shortcomings or failures. So this can bring about some discomfort, deep discomfort. It can bring about feelings of incompetency and unattractiveness, inadequacies, maybe even guilt may arise. It's a hard experience for most of us to go through to see where we fall short in our life, and we usually avoid it to protect our ego. But having no awareness of our current lifestyle is exactly what holds people back from living the life they truly want and deserve. So we're going to take stock of all of our shortcomings today, all of our limitations, all of the areas that we feel like we need to grow in, and we're going to ask important questions of ourselves. So look at our wheel of life. Take a good look at it. Let's see. Make a goal for each area that will change the level of satisfaction when achieved. So pick an area where you might feel low and make a goal for yourself. And let's drop the facade. Let's get rid of the idea that I should do this, and be honest with yourself and say what you really want. And then reflect on the pattern of the way that you talk to yourself. Are you judging yourself? What areas do you want to see growth, and what areas are causing discomfort in your life? What category would you most like to improve? And what category do you want to start with? Because there are quite a few. Having a balanced existence is essential. And I call this meeting of the inadequacies the shadow self. Living life to the fullest doesn't mean that you just choose your positive experiences and avoid the negative. The real fullness of life comes when we encounter all of the disharmonies on our path and understand it as a shared human experience that's going to be peppered with these experiences even in the future to come. But these life challenges are an opportunity for new strength and potential for you to transform. There is always good in the bad. And we as people have a unique potential to transform any story that we have of tragedy into triumph. And I'm going to share with you an example. This is the story of a therapist, Viktor Frankl, and he speaks to a patient about finding the good in a seemingly terrible situation, something that there didn't seem any good in. Finding this realization, the man's life is changed just by finding the meaning behind his suffering. So the story goes, an elderly man went to see a therapist for his severe depression. He could not overcome the loss of his wife, whom he loved above all else, who had died 2 years before, and what goodness could exist within the story? Well, the therapist asks the question, what would have happened if you had died first, and your wife would have had to survive you? Oh, he thought for a moment. For her, this would have been terrible. How she would have suffered. The therapist replied, "You see, she has been spared suffering, and it was you who spared her the suffering, at the price that you now have to survive and mourn her." He said no words, but shook the therapist's hand and calmly left. You see, in some way, suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds a meaning. Notice that this man is now the hero of his own story, saving his wife from untold suffering. This is the process of self-acceptance, and that's what we'll be working on today. Self-acceptance refers to the relationship you have with yourself and being able to accept yourself despite your weaknesses and shortcomings. A person who accepts themselves fully realizes that they have faults and they can work on correcting them without blaming or judging or hating themselves for having them. This is the process of self-development. We can identify our weaknesses without identifying ourselves as our weaknesses. So how can you change your story to a hero's story? For example, when life hands you lemons, you can make lemonade, and you can sweeten your sour attitude about lemons. You can stop associating with people who don't like lemons, who get you down on lemons. You can try several thousand fabulous recipes calling for lemons. You can go visit someone who has a bunch of lemons and ask her how she deals with them. You can extend special understanding to someone who's just gotten a rotten lemon. This is the exercise we'll be doing today in transforming your challenges or your shortcomings in certain areas of your life into a hero's journey. When you see yourself as a hero of this story, moving through obstacles and growing through the phases of your life, we can change our perspective to have meaning. There is a theory that rivals post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's called post-traumatic growth, where a trauma occurs and you use this to encourage growth in your life. So we'll pick one or two areas that you find challenge with in your wheel of life, and you'll pull out your journal, and we'll be using your best possible self in conjunction with this to explain the obstacle on your journey as a pathway towards your best possible self. How did you get from one experience to the other? Why did you have to go through this challenge, this obstacle in your journey? And what was the meaning behind your story? After completing our exercise in self-acceptance, we'll move on to self-compassion. So we can think of self-compassion similarly to finding the good and the bad. We'll use the yin and the yang. The yin would be the nurturing and comforting and soothing side of self-compassion. So recognizing that there is inevitable pain in life, and that's part of the human experience. Being mindful and aware of this pain and giving validity to it, gently leading ourselves through these painful emotions and letting our body know that everything is going to be okay, with a warm and tender gentleness, willing to be open to what it is. The yang, on the other hand, is the protective and the providing, motivating side of our self-compassion. It can also take place as fear. It's becoming aware of this pain and stepping up and protecting yourself. Standing with others who have experienced similar disharmonies, seeing the truth and showing up with a fierce inner strength. Sometimes it involves saying no and turning away from the danger, figuring out what we need, ensuring our needs are met. When it's time to step up, we make the change. These are the two aspects of self-compassion, and by facing any undesirable experience, you're dealing with your shadow self. So you're dealing with darker parts of yourself. It's important that you don't run, you don't hide, you comfort yourself, or you confront the issue. You practice compassion from within. And we begin to care about ourselves and show others that we care. Small things can help you through this path of self-compassion. You can give yourself a hot bath. and play relaxing music at the end of a long day. You could learn to be less critical and instead treat yourself with kindness when things don't go well. Give yourself tenderness and care when you need it and when you're going through a tough time. Trying to understand and show patience to yourself throughout your own failures and faults and mistakes. Being tolerant of your shortcomings, and remember that imperfection is part of the shared human experience. So that's all for today. Take your best possible self story to the next level, and I'll see you in our next class on harmony in the body, where we talk about diet and how it affects your overall life and well-being. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.